What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. We're here, we're ready, we're back to rock and roll to really get our trade deadline grades underway. I know it was a couple days ago, but I do want to get the video out there and talk about some of these trades. So the first trade we had, it was a little ways, it was about a week and a half before the deadline. The Eagles went out and traded for Titan safeties Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is one of the better safeties in the league. He's a big playmaker. He's definitely older, definitely not one of the younger safeties, but he's still a very good playmaker, really good player in general. And the Eagles give up safety Terrell Edmunds, which I thought that was good. Terrell Edmunds is, he is not a very good safety. He is pretty bad. He allows a lot of big plays. He's not a great tackler. I'm just really not a fan of Terrell Edmunds. Never have been. I wasn't a fan of the signing when they signed him. He's just not a very good safety. He's just not. He's gonna allow big plays. He's gonna miss some tackles. He's just not a very good safety. He was even like that when he was with the Steelers. So, two teams that are known for their defense and known to get defensive talent going, the Steelers and the Eagles, couldn't really get it out of Trotman. So what makes us think that the Titans will? I mean, the Titans have a good defense. They'll try and get him going. I don't think they could, though. If the Eagles and the Steelers could, I don't think they will. But they did a pretty good job of replacing Kevin Byard, at least getting someone in that spot so they don't have anyone. So they're not, left scrambling there. But then, the Titans also received a 2024 fifth-round pick and a 2024 sixth-round pick. So I don't think the value was appropriate for Kevin Byard. I did not think the Titans got enough. But you did also get a safety to kind of fill in that void for Kevin Byard. I still think they could have gotten a little higher of a draft pick, maybe a fourth and a fifth. I think they, maybe a fourth and a sixth. I think they really sold themselves short because Kevin Byard is a very good safety. We also have to remember safety isn't really a premium position. It's just, maybe they're just trying to get some picks, trying to get a couple of extra players in there, which they got with Terrell Edmunds, and then got a couple extra picks. The Titans really need a couple extra picks, maybe to try and hit that gem or help out in special teams or depth or something of that lines. A lot of these teams that are selling at the deadline will look for those picks so they can try and build their team or retool. If they're not technically rebuilding, they can try to retool. So the Titans, they're getting a D+. Really, maybe this is a little better than what they should have gotten, but I think a D+ is fair. I'm not a fan of what they got for Kevin Byard, although they still did get someone to fill in for Kevin Byard at least. But Terrell Edmunds is not a very good player. I wouldn't trade anything for him, and I still think that they're just getting someone in there to keep to keep a void from opening there so they don't have to scramble and look for someone at the last second. But why not keep the guys you have in-house that already know the system as well? Why not just get a better draft pick? Really confusing there, but the Eagles, they get an A. This is a very good trade for them. Really, I was really impressed with what they got, with what they gave up for what they got. Kevin Byard, he's a very good safety, but he is really getting up there in age, and he is due for a contract after this year. Will the Eagles re-sign him? Probably not. They'll probably look for someone else in the draft. They have that safety from Illinois. He's still trying to get it figured out. But honestly, good job. Really good job trying to fill a void where, that defense has been playing really bad. It's been really struggling, especially against teams that have really good weapons, a decent quarterback like they did versus the Washington Commanders 2 weeks, not 2 weeks in a row, but both matchups, they really struggled defensively. And the Commanders have kind of set the blueprint on how to really beat this Eagles defense, but you really need the talent. You can't just have the blueprint there, offensively on a scheme. You really need to have that talent to beat the Eagles defense. But that Eagles defense is very beatable if you have a decent, which, the Commanders don't have a very good offensive line, so maybe they do set some kind of a blueprint for the teams that don't have a good offensive line. But a lot of those teams, a lot of the bad teams in the NFL that don't have a good offensive line, they don't really have the weapons to do so, or maybe even the quarterback, because I do like Sam Howell, I do like the weapons, but we'll see. I think that was a good trade for the Eagles, a really good trade. I didn't give it an A+. I just thought an A was fine. I didn't think it garnered any more than that. They got him for a good deal. They gave rid of a safety they didn't really like. So, yeah, the Eagles get an A, a really good trade for them, filling in a spot of need. All right, this next one is very confusing, very weird to me. I wasn't a fan of this trade on either side, but, the Lions did, obviously the trade is, you see it on the screen. The Lions trade for wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones, and the Browns received a 5th-round pick for him. So I'm assuming that the Browns really want to up Cedric Tillman's snaps, which I do like Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. I think he's I think he can be a very good receiver. But I think they're kind of, maybe underestimating what you really have in Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's a good receiver, and he had a lot of snaps. He had a lot of playing times. I believe he had the most snaps over in Cleveland. Yeah, and then he wasn't really productive, but maybe teams were really paying attention to him. But I mean, are really trying to limit him. But then you also have Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, so teams can't really just focus on Donovan Peoples-Jones. And plus, Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't just one of those guys. He's not a big time difference maker, but he's a good route runner. He's a he's a decent receiver, and I like the addition for the Lions. I like it, but you could kind of always go with the saying that you can never have enough weapons, but I just think, they gave up, maybe they gave up a little much for him, considering you have some really good receivers in your roster. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. You have Josh Reynolds, who's been very good for you. You have Jameson Williams. You have so many, you do have a lot of weapons, and I don't really know why you had to go ahead and get Donovan Peoples-Jones, but hey, the more weapons, they're just trying to get a little bit better, maybe not break the bank for someone, but trying to get, some depth just in case. That's all I really see this as. But yeah, the Lions get a C-. I don't really understand this trade, to be honest with you. If you guys could understand it, let me know what you think. I don't really understand it, but if you guys have a different, reasoning behind it than I do, I like to hear it. Give me in the comment section. So yeah, very confusing trade. I did not expect this one at all. But next up, we have the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of NFC trades, it seems like. A lot of NFC teams included. Yeah, the Niners received defensive end Chase Young, one of the better, he's a very good edge rusher, very good, and that probably makes their defensive line one of the best in the league, if not the best. The only thing is you are going to have to pay him, and where, where the question comes in for me is, you gave up phenomenal value for him. I mean, this is a player that probably would have been traded for a second, maybe a late first, but I think a third is, I don't think the Commanders got enough value, so that is why they're at a D+. But, talking about the Niners side of things, I'm kind of confused with the Niners going after. Well, I'm not really confused with them just building upon a strength that they already have. Sometimes it's the best thing to do, and they're just going to continue to build upon that. And Chase Young, he's one of the best young pass rushers in the game, but, you're going to be in cap room hell, really. You look at their cap room situation, it's not great, and they're going to have to pay Chase Young a pretty penny as well. You're already paying Nick Bosa, you're paying Javon Hargrave a lot of money. Is there such thing as paying your defensive line too much money? I don't think so, because defensive line is one of the most important in the NFL, but I still feel like, they're really going to put themselves into cap hell here. But we'll see. They're just getting better now. They're trying to, maybe rewrite the ship right now, because it's not looking too good. They started 5-0, and they lost 3 in a row, obviously, but making a big-time move to get one of the best young pass rushers in the league. But then, you go to them, so that's why they get an A. I think it's a very good trade. The only thing that, maybe it's a little high, because where are they going to get the money from? They haven't paid Brock Purdy. He's young. He's still on, for 2.5 years. But, I mean, you're going to have to pay him eventually. You're paying George Kittle a pretty penny. You're paying Trent Williams a lot of money. I believe they have the highest paid fullback in the league. They have, they're paying Fred Warner a lot of money. It's just, a lot of this money is going to be difficult to keep around. But I mean, I guess we'll see. They'll have to figure it out. They have no other choice, and he adds and Chase Young just adds a whole nother dimension to this defensive line. If it wasn't great before, it's it's absolutely elite now, which it was still elite before. They have Arik Armstead. They have so many guys in that defensive line. Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave. As I mentioned them before. Now you add Chase Young to the mix. It's a very good trade. And you know what? Maybe the Commanders couldn't get more because another team had to they would have to extend him, and they would have, and they have to worry about the injury history. Chase Young has had an injury history. He's had, he struggled to stay healthy, and maybe that's what drove the value down a little bit. But still, for one of the better young edge rushers in the league, especially so far this year, I feel like you could have at least gotten a second out of it. But hey, the Niners had to pay him, and it's also even more confusing considering you traded both of your star edge rushers. I found that very confusing. Chase Young and Montez Sweat, both of those guys could have been involved in the rebuild. They're not a great team now, but both of these guys are young. They could rush the quarterback. They provide so many positives to your team. Why would you trade them? You're just setting yourself back even more, especially both of them. If you kept one, okay. I wouldn't mind if they trade one of them, but they, trade both of them. It's very confusing, and, maybe they should have gotten an F, but, I guess, they still got a third-round pick. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It wasn't good. I found it very confusing on why they only got a third and why, they trade both of their edge rushers, which, should probably bring down the grades of both trades, but, yeah, the Commanders did a very good. Well, no, I'm just saying that they did a horrible job. Then I'm saying they're pretty good. I apologize, but yeah, the Commanders did a really poor job with Chase Young here. I would have at least, if I was going to keep Montez Sweat or Chase Young, I would have kept Chase Young. So I think that is a very poor decision to trade Chase Young. Especially since you traded Montez Sweat, as we were just talking about. Wait, did we have them different there? We had them different. Interesting. I had the colors different. All right. So next up, we have the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. So the Commanders absolutely won this trade. It was a very good trade. Now, considering they traded both edge rushers, it probably shouldn't be an A+. But I thought they got a lot more value out of Montez Sweat than I thought they would have gotten. I thought they would have gotten a third. I thought it would have been reversed in the comp that they got for Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I thought maybe Chase Young would have gotten the second, would have garnered a second, and Montez Sweat would have garnered like a third. But they're both really good pass rushers. They're both really young, and they both have a bright future ahead of them. If both of them could stay healthy, that's kind of been the issue with both of them. So yeah, I think it's a really good value for the Washington Commanders. I'm really impressed with how much they got from Montez Sweat. Now maybe it shouldn't be an A+, but I really do think it should. It should be at the same time, because they got a second round pick, a lot more for a player that they're going to be, that they don't have to pay now, and not they have injury, they have an injury history as well. So I think it's very confusing on why the Bears trade for him. Let's talk about the Bears side. They get a C-. Not a fan of this trade. I don't think this is a very good trade. It could be good in a couple aspects. Obviously you're getting a very good pass rusher that can rush the quarterback, that can play a big part in that rebuild. And I think that defense has a bright future. I don't think Matt Eberflus should be going anywhere. I think a lot of people are calling for Matt Eberflus' job, but I think Matt Eberflus shouldn't go anywhere. I think Matt Eberflus, I don't think he's that bad of a head coach. I'll give him some more time, and I think he's going to get it done. And, I think this also indicates that Matt Eberflus and the GM are not going anywhere this season, because why would, they must have had some kind of word in this, in trading for Montez Sweat, So I don't see the Bears head coach or GM going anywhere this season. I see them staying for another season, at least for, another half a season. We'll see how next season goes, and, next season will be the true measuring stick for for the Bears staff, the front end, and, the coaching and the GM. But I think this is very confusing because, they're not really... they're gonna have to pay him. They're not really in the position to win and succeed now. And usually, are they really getting that? Were they that desperate to trade for Montez Sweat when they know they're not going to compete anyways? I don't get it. You're gonna have to pay him, like I said. You give up a second round pick. He has an injury history. I don't think this trade makes a lot of sense. It could make a sense for the future. If you're gonna pay him now, okay, you have him locked down. All right, it's pretty good. You got yourself a nice edge rusher, but he has an injury history. The Bears aren't really in the position to really be buying now. I don't really understand that aspect of it. Maybe it's just a pure future thing. But the issue with that is can he stay healthy? He's gonna want a decent amount of money, and if you look at the defense, the defense isn't looking too bad. I actually kind of like the defense, for the future. Right now, there's still a lot of holes, but you have some pretty good linebackers in there right now. Jalen Johnson, he's one of the better young quarterbacks in the league. Tyreek Stevenson has had his ups and downs. He can possibly be a good cornerback. And safety, you have Jaquan Brisker. You have some really good players in that defense. Just a matter of fact of continuing to fill those voids, and can they? If they do, nice. I think I think that defense can continue to improve and be a very good defense. But I just don't think it's a very good move for them right now. A C minus, and I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to trade for Montez Sweat. Why not just go after a guy in the second round? Why not just go after a guy in the first round? Why trade for a guy you're gonna have to pay? You're not ready to win right now, so why not just draft a young guy, try to develop, and then maybe he'll be a decent pass rusher by the time you are competing, or if you ever do get to that point. So. The Bears get a C minus. The Commanders get an A plus. I thought it was a really good value for the Commanders, considering they're gonna have to pay him. He's injury prone a bit, kind of moving on and just getting more draft capital, which I really like. But I don't really like how the Commanders traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat. But I don't think I can really lower the grade of one of these trades. If they're just completely different trades. You have to you obviously have to grade them differently. All right, next up, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars traded for Ezra Cleveland from the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings got a 2024 sixth-round pick, and, of course, the Jaguars got offensive guard Ezra Cleveland. I thought it was a pretty good trade for the Jaguars and the Vikings. I thought it was a pretty good trade on both ends. I thought that they both got decent value. But I will talk about the negatives on each side here. So Ezra Cleveland, he was playing pretty bad for most of the year. Before this year, it seemed like he could be a pretty good guard. But this year, he played pretty bad. Don Reisner, he stepped into that guard spot, and he looked phenomenal. And the offensive line has been even better since he stepped in. So him getting benched, I don't really understand why. But the Jaguars taking a chance, actually. No, I do understand why Ezra Cleveland was benched. He wasn't playing well. Dalton Risner came in, and he played much better. So, you're trading for a guy, you don't really know what you're going to get from him. And that offense line isn't really good as it is, but I think it's a good value, a sixth-round pick. I don't think that's too much of an issue. But then, on the Viking side of things, they get a B because, they get value out of him. They have someone else starting over him already. But the only big issue I have with this trade for the Vikings is that, maybe he was I think he was a really good depth piece, and you get rid of him, you're getting him to Jaguars for a sixth, so maybe you just keep the depth at that point if you're just going to get a sixth. But hey, maybe they're just trying to get something out of it. Maybe they could use that sixth round pick in a future trade, and for some leverage or something. You never really know. But the Jaguars do receive an offensive guard, which the offense line has not been very good. So taking the chance on a guard, which is another team has not had good experiences lately, but kind of depends on what kind of Ezra Cleveland you get, on what player you get. He was looking very good before this year. This year he comes around and he's playing pretty horrible. So we'll see. But pretty straightforward trade. I think it's a very even trade on both sides of the ball. Definitely both have their disadvantages. As every trade has their pros and cons, but I think this is a pretty good trade for both ends. A pretty even trade if you ask me. Next up, you have the Arizona Cardinals trading Joshua Dobbs to the Minnesota Vikings. So obviously Kirk Cousins goes down with the torn Achilles, so the Vikings are scrambling, trying to find someone, and the Vikings are looking like a really good football team, like they can maybe sneak in the playoffs and play. Spoiler alert, maybe the Vikings were they a Super Bowl team? Probably not, just because of how heavy, just because of how top heavy the NFC is with the Lions, the Niners, the Eagles. We'll see. If the Niners can rebound, we'll see. If the Cowboys, how the Cowboys and the Eagles game goes this weekend. But I like the trade for the Vikings, but at the same time, I don't really think it makes a ton of sense, because you trade for Joshua Dobbs, is that really going to put you into that top tier? Were you really going to go and win anything this year? That's what I'm kind of asking myself. Why not just ride out the year with Jaren Hall, a nice young rookie quarterback? I think Jaren Hall is actually playing this week, so I don't you just trade for him, before the deadline because you can't trade for him after, obviously. But if Jaren Hall plays good, you're kind of like, oh shit, you kind of just traded a 6th-round pick. It's a waste of a pick, but you never know. But I like Jaren Hall. I want to see Jaren Hall a little bit, but maybe Joshua Dobbs doesn't play for the Vikings at all. But I do think it's a good insurance policy. It's a good to trade for him just in case. But as you see, I have the asterisk around the after the 2024 7th-round pick, and that's because that is a conditional pick that can turn into a 6th-round pick, which would basically just be a swap of 6th-round picks for Joshua Dobbs. But right now, the Cardinals are just getting a 6th-round pick. So, I'm happy they didn't trade a lot more from him, out of desperation. I think a 6th-round pick is fine. Of course, the Cardinals are going to be starting Clayton Tune this week. We know Joshua Dobbs isn't really it. But Joshua Dobbs does bring a whole different kind of element to the Vikings offense if he does end up playing. He's way more athletic than Kirk Cousins. He can run the ball a little bit, and he'll bring a whole different dimension and maybe help that run game out. But the passing game definitely will take a hit. We'll see if Justin Jefferson does end up coming back. He might, he may not. We'll see, but I think the Vikings get a good insurance policy. But, at the same time, if Jaren Hall plays and he looks pretty good, you're kind of like, oh, crap. You kind of just, wasted a move there, a pick. But, I mean, it is what it is. I think the Cardinals did a pretty good job getting some value for him. Now, if the Cardinals got like a 5th or, I would have probably bumped it up to a B. But it is what it is. I think this is a pretty good trade as well. The last 2 trades we talked about that were pretty even. All right, next up. I really loved this trade for the New York Giants. I thought that was a very good trade. And then, you talk about, the Seahawks really bolstering that defensive line. The Seahawks are one of the top teams in the NFC as well. I think there's a lot of good teams in the NFC on the top. But then once you stop talking about the top teams, I think you could maybe throw the Seahawks in there as long as Geno Smith can continue to play at a decent level and not make too many mistakes. Maybe their red zone offense could get better. That's what could really hold them back. But I think that was, they're building upon a strength. That defense is really impressive, really good. And I believe Leonard Williams, I believe he was paid recently too, so you don't really have to worry about a contract with him. But it is a lot of money. I believe it was a big contract, but really good trade for the Seahawks. I really like it. It's a very good trade for both sides. Really, I'm just giving the Giants an A+ because I think they got a lot more value out of Leonard Williams than I thought they would. I thought they would maybe get a 3rd, a 4th, at the lowest a 3rd, or at the highest I thought they would get a 3rd at least. But they did trade a 3rd from him a couple of years ago, and he was a really good player for a couple of years. But now I wouldn't say the Giants are going into a rebuild, because I don't think they're that bad of a football team as they're looking like. I think they're, a couple of players away on offense and defense from being a fairly decent football team. So I don't think they're rebuilding. I think it's more so of a retooling, maybe. I think there's a few things here and there that they'll fix, and they could be a better football team. As you see, the defense is looking really good. The defensive line, they have a lot of depth. They have Boogie Basham on the end. Kayvon Thibodeau. They have a lot of guys. Dexter Lawrence, he's awesome. They have a lot of big playmakers on defense. It's kind of building the offense up. If they could get that offense figured out, then I think the Giants can be a very good football team over the next couple of years. It depends who their quarterback's going to be. Daniel Jones. I mean, it's tough for him. You can't really do much in the offense line. It's that, when it's that bad. But we're kind of getting off topic a little bit. But I'm just kind of talking about the Giants a little bit. I think they're a couple players away on offense from being a very good football team. And they haven't had Trent Williams playing either. Don't forget, they have one of the best left tackles in the game. They have a very good defensive line. I really like what we've seen from Deonte Banks. He's been awesome. So I think this is a really good trade for the Giants. Maybe spread that talent out. Maybe use that 2nd-round pick for an offensive lineman or something. I really like what the Giants did with this trade. They got a lot more value than I thought they would. I thought this, that's kind of keeping the Seahawks out of the B to B+ range, kind of keep them on the low end B, because I think they gave up a little too much for him. Because you're still paying him a lot of money. I feel like maybe they should. I don't know. I really don't know. I think the Seahawks are actually a good football team. I just think they gave up a little too much. But when you're, you got to buy in, and you're facing some top heavy talent like the Eagles, like the Niners, take what you will. pick what you want from the Niners right now. I don't know if they are. They're definitely stumbling. The Cowboys are probably one of the better teams. You have the Lions, so there's a lot of really good teams, and you really just gotta buy in and try to be the best that you possibly can. So it still gets a B. It's still a good trade for them, but I think the Giants absolutely won this trade. I believe they traded a third-round pick for him a couple of years ago, so now they get a second and a fifth out of him. You kind of flipped them. You kind of got a little more value, and you're much better now than you were in a couple years ago. I know the record doesn't show it, but I think the Giants are just a couple players away from being a decent football team. So, really good trade for the Giants. Absolutely won this trade. A+ for the Giants, B- for the Seahawks. All right, next up, you have the Falcons and the Eagles trade. So it's a little trade. Defense lineman Kavarius Street and a 7th-round pick, and they gave up a 2024 6th-round pick, and they got a 2025 5th. So I don't really think it makes much sense for the Falcons to go out and trade for him. I mean, he's good depth. You're just looking for a depth piece, and that's really it. He barely played in Philly, so for getting a 6th-round pick, getting something out of him for this year's draft, I think it's a very good. And you only gave up a 2nd for next year. I think it's a very good trade for the Eagles. I think they absolutely won him value-wise because their defensive line is so deep as it is. Kavarius Street barely played for them, so getting something out of him in which a player you don't really use, you got 2024 6, and you never know what you could get with that 6th-round pick. So, and then the Falcons, or hold on. So So they get a 6. I don't know why I'm overthinking this, just looking at this the wrong way. But yeah, the Falcons got a 7th, and Kavarius Street is maybe could be a good rotational piece and stuff like that. But I think the Falcons have a good defense line. I don't think the defense line is their issue. I don't think they have good linebackers other than AJ Terrell. They don't really have good cornerbacks. They have a really good safety in Jesse Bates. I think they're like a corner, they're a cornerback or two away from, a cornerback, maybe another safety and linebacker away from being a top-notch defense. Their defense line is very good. I really like Bud Dupree. I really like what they have in the defense line. Amenyata, Grady Jarrett. They have a lot of really good players in that defense line. It's just a matter of fact of, I think it's more so the passing defense is an issue and not having really good linebackers, which makes it difficult to be really good against the run. But, I'm taking... I'm giving the Falcons a D+. I'm not too high on it. I guess they're getting some depth. I don't think it really makes much sense. Why not just go after a guy in free agency like that, or in the draft maybe go after a young guy for a 6th-round pick. I don't really think it's a great. I don't really think it's really impressive for the Falcons. But the Eagles, they're getting an A for for getting a 6th-round pick for getting something out of a player in which they don't has barely played for them. So again, A out of this one. All right, last but not least, this is the latest one. I believe that, the last one before the deadline. The Bills traded for Packers cornerback Rasul Douglas and a 2025 5th-round pick, while the Packers received a 2024 3rd-round pick. I think the Packers absolutely blew this trade out of the water. Very good trade. I think they got a little more than they should have. Now, they did give a 5th as well. They're getting a 3rd, kind of compensating a little bit, but Rasul Douglas, he was very good for the Packers, but the teams they played for before the Packers, he wasn't really that impressive of a cornerback. I believe he played for the Eagles, the Broncos, and he wasn't too good with them. So I think the Bills are really taking a chance here, and really hoping that he's just a better player in general now. He's not going to, just because he's going to a different team now, he's going to be bad again. They also have good defensive line. They have good players. They could use another cornerback. They could have used someone else in the secondary, and they're building on a strength. You notice a lot of these teams, a lot of these, really good football teams, a lot of people think that they're going to address weaknesses, but no, they address their strengths. They make their strengths even stronger, and I love that. I think that's a great way to build a team. Just continue to build on the strengths, and, make sure you don't have any spots in your roster that's really, really weak, like a liability. But I think you should build upon your strengths because that gives you your identity. If you just, if you just go ahead and try to balance everything out, you don't really have an identity. So, but it doesn't hurt to get better players, of course. But the Packers, getting a 3rd-round pick out of all this, I think that's absolutely killer of a deal. I think they absolutely blew it out of the water in terms of them winning in compensation. Now the Bills, they gave up. The Packers gave up a 5th-round pick in cornerback Rasul Douglas. Will Rasul Douglas be what he was before he was with the Packers, or will he be the cornerback that we saw with the Packers? I thought he was a decent cornerback with the Packers, and we'll see if he can do that with the Bills as well. And the Bills get a C+. I do think they gave up a little much, but the Packers get an A. And that's all we really got from you guys today. That is going to do it for our NFL trade deadline grades. I got 9 trades here. It wasn't as crazy of a deadline as it was last year. It was still a pretty nice deadline. We got a lot of we got a lot of decent trades in there, 9 trades. But that's all I really got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in to the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan's welcome. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you want to see future videos. This is the JDW Sports Talk Show, signing off.